Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tackling the first chapter, a pretty interesting new book. It's called How to Improve Any Learning Organization, and it's by Steve Rosenbaum.
Yes, Steve Rosenbaum, CEO of Learning Paths International. He's got, what, over 45 years in training and development? Quite the resume.
Oh, yeah. And get this, it's his fifth book, so definitely not his first rodeo. He clearly has a lot of experience packed in there.
And this first chapter, setting the stage, it really does just that. It lays the groundwork, the foundation for how you even start thinking about improving a learning org.
Right. So our mission here is kind of like a distillation, right? We've read through it to pull out the key stuff, give you a shortcut to the main ideas Rosenbaum is starting with.
Exactly. We know you want the insights without having to, slog through the whole thing yourself.
Yeah.
Get the value quickly.
So Rosenbaum starts with a metaphor I found quite relatable, actually. He talks about those business turnaround reality shows.
Oh, yeah. Like which ones?
Bar Rescue, Kitchen Nightmares, The Profit, those kinds of shows.
Ah, okay. Interesting starting point. So what's the connection he's making?
Well, he sees this common thread. The hosts on these shows, the experts they bring in, they all have this very disciplined way of finding the problems and then, bang, implementing changes really fast.
Right. They come in, assess, and act. And Rosenbaum suggests they often see the same underlying issues pop up again and again.
Exactly. They aren't usually surprised, he says, like his example of staff drunk and dancing on the bar.
Yikes.
He says that points directly to a lack of standards, sure, but also a lack of real leadership enforcing anything.
Makes sense. Or the restaurant that keeps serving cold food.
Yeah.
Same root cause. He argues no clear standards,
Hmm.
or maybe standards exist, but no active leadership making sure they're followed.
He even mentioned a messy stockroom in manufacturing. Can't find parts. That's a lack of a system, a lack of knowing your own inventory. Basic stuff, really.
Okay, so these core problems, standards, leadership systems, they show up everywhere. So the big question then is,
What on earth does this have to do with improving a training department? That's what we're digging into.
and Rosenbaum's argument, basically, is that his own experience, 40 plus years, over 100 training departments,
Hmm.
it gives him a similar kind of framework, a defined method for looking at a training function.
Like the TV hosts, he recognizes the patterns.
Precisely. And because of that, he thinks it's easier to spot opportunities, how to make things more effective, maybe cut costs, even boost morale for the team.
Okay, so let's unpack that. One of the first practical bits of advice is where to start. He says you don't need some massive, overwhelming audit of everything.
Yeah, I liked his line there. You don't need to taste everything on the menu to know the food's bad.
Huh, exactly. So don't try to boil the ocean.
Right. He advises starting at the project level. He also calls it an initiative or engagement, but basically it's a specific training solution.
So, like, the whole process, for one thing, design, development, rollout, maybe even analysis and evaluation.
Like employee onboarding or training new salespeople or a leadership development program. Focus on one project first.
That feels much more doable. Instead of fix the entire department, it's let's improve this one specific program.
Makes it less daunting, lets you see results faster.
Mhm.
Now, another point he brings up early, and this one really resonated with me,
What's that?
the lack of common language. Even basic terms like training plan or curriculum. People often have different ideas about what those actually mean, even on the same team.
Oh, I can absolutely see that happening. You think you're all aligned, but your fundamental definitions are off.
Total confusion waiting to happen.
Okay.
So Rosenbaum makes a point of defining terms as he goes through the book. He says it's not about using his specific term necessarily.
But about having a shared definition within your team, everyone on the same page.
Exactly. And he also notes he uses training manager as a catch-all term for whoever's in charge. Director, CLO, VP, whatever the title, just for simplicity. Okay, clear enough. So then he gets into this quick assessment. 7 questions he thinks can tell you a lot. Quickly.
Right. A diagnostic tool. Should we dive into those?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
The first one seems really fundamental. What do you believe is absolutely true about how people learn?
And you might think, well, training professionals should have an answer for that, right?
We'd hope so.
But Rosenbaum shares an anecdote asking this at a conference and getting basically silence. People struggle to articulate their core learning principles.
Wow. So his point is, if you don't have that foundational belief system,
Your training is built on shaky ground. It leads to inconsistency, maybe ineffective programs. It's the cornerstone.
He also mentioned it helps with vendors, right? If you have clear principles, you can evaluate if a vendor's approach actually fits.
Yeah, exactly. It gives you a benchmark. You're not just accepting their standard package. You're ensuring it aligns with what you believe works. It guides everything.
Okay, principle 1. Know your learning beliefs. What's question 2? Question 2 looks at the source of work. How do you get your work? Are you an order taker, strategic partner, or something in between?
Ah, this feels crucial. The difference between just executing versus actually shaping strategy.
Big difference. The order taker gets involved late, told what to do, often after key decisions are already made.
We need a course on X, deliver it by Friday.
Pretty much. Whereas the strategic partner is in the conversation much earlier. They influence the direction, the priorities, even budgets. They build those higher-level relationships.
So it's about shifting perception from being seen as just a cost center.
To being seen as an investment, a group that actively contributes to business goals. Think
Yeah.
about it. Are you mainly responding to requests, or are you proactively identifying learning needs tied to business outcomes?
He used good examples, like instead of just deliver safety training, which is order taking.
The strategic partner focuses on how do we actually reduce accidents. It's outcome-focused.
Or not just teach sales skills, but how do we increase sales? It connects training directly to business results.
That's the goal. Okay, question 3 moves to process. How do you design new training?
So this is about methodology.
Right. Do you have a consistent, documented design process?
Yeah.
He mentions common ones like ADDIE, SAM, Agile.
Familiar acronyms.
Yeah, lots of models out there. His point isn't which model you use, necessarily, but that you have one, and that it's used consistently and aligns with those learning principles we talked about.
Because otherwise.
Otherwise, every project is reinventing the wheel. It's inefficient, leads to inconsistent quality, maybe delays, cost overruns, like that disorganized pottery analogy again.
Right. No system. It impacts everything downstream.
Definitely. A consistent model helps with planning, training new staff, talking to vendors, standardizing your deliverables. It smooths things out. He mentions a training company that had a 3-day onboarding just on their design process.
3 days. Wow.
But it paid off, he suggests, in efficiency and client satisfaction. It sets the standard.
Makes sense. What's number 4?
Number 4 is about staffing. How is your training organization staffed? Looks at the makeup of the team.
Size and structure. Yeah.
He notes 2 common models, broadly speaking. One relies heavily on internal subject matter experts or external vendors who have deep technical knowledge.
But maybe not a formal learning background.
Potentially. And the other model relies more on staff who do have backgrounds in learning, instructional design, adult education, that sort of thing.
And he sees opportunity in both.
Yeah, opportunity for development.
Mm-hmm.
The technical experts might need more awareness of learning principles and design techniques, while the learning folks obviously need strong connections to the subject matter experts for content. It's about bridging those gaps.
Got it. Okay, number 5. This is often a tricky one. How do you evaluate and measure training?
Ah, yes, the measurement challenge. Rosenbaum kind of jokes, maybe that's why some people get into teaching to avoid math.
Huh. Could be some truth there.
But it's a serious gap he often sees. He tells a story about a training manager admitting they just didn't know how to measure success, contrasted with a quality department head who, thanks to Six Sigma, had measurement down pat. It highlights a potential skills gap in the training field itself.
And he stresses the difference between knowing and doing. Right.
Crucially, a multiple choice test might show someone knows something, maybe in an e-learning module, but can they actually apply it effectively on the job? That's the real measure.
He had that funny example about the insurance sales training.
Oh yeah, where the main takeaway reported by trainees was just networking with each other, not actually learning sales skills. Shows a disconnect between the training goal and the actual outcome, or at least the perceived value.
So how do you fix that?
Plan for measurement from the very beginning. Tie it to a business case, ideally a financial one. What's the expected impact? How will we track it? Don't make evaluation an afterthought.
Makes sense. Set the target before you shoot. Okay, number 6, technology.
Yep. Do you have an LMS or other learning platform, and are you happy with it?
Uh-oh. Based on general industry chatter, the answer to the second part is often.
Oh, exactly. He references his colleague Marty Rosenheck's informal polls at conferences. Everyone has an LMS. Almost nobody loves it. It's a running theme.
Why is that, do you think? Or what does Rosenbaum say?
Well, he points out that even good software changes how people work. Just installing it isn't enough. Plus, many LMSs were built for academic tracking, Not always great for informal learning or integrating smoothly with other HR tech.
So the unhappiness might be a symptom of something else.
Could be. Maybe roles haven't been redesigned to leverage the tech, or maybe those core design and delivery processes aren't solid. The LMS can't fix underlying problems. It's a tool, not a magic wand.
Good point. Okay, last question in the quick assessment. Number 7.
Who gets involved with training? This is about stakeholder engagement.
Avoiding the training silo.
Precisely. Training departments that work in isolation often fail to have real impact. He shares that classic, painful quote from a supervisor.
Oh, that's great you went through training. Now let me show you what we really do.
That's the one. Kills the transfer of learning right there. Shows a total disconnect.
So the solution is involvement.
Yes. Get a strong project champion early, someone with skin in the game, maybe a financial stake. Involve stakeholders all the way through for content input, feedback, approvals. Keep it transparent.
It's really change management, isn't it?
Absolutely. Training is change. And he makes a final point here. If you ask these 7 questions to different people in the training team and get wildly different answers.
That itself tells you something. Lack of internal alignment.
Big red flag right there.
Wow, okay. Those 7 questions cover a lot of ground. It really does feel like a solid, quick assessment. But he doesn't stop there, right? He also talks about direct observation.
Right. Asking questions is crucial, but you also need to actually look at what's happening, see it in action. He highlights 4 areas for this.
What's the first one?
Deliverables. The actual stuff the training department produces. Proposals, materials, reports, all of it.
What are you looking for?
Completeness, for one, is the whole set there. But also consistency. Are they using templates? Or is every PowerPoint deck, every handout formatted completely differently, wasting time on basic stuff?
Yeah, that lack of standardization again. Okay, second observation area.
Classroom training. Actually sitting in on sessions.
And not just looking at the slides,
But seeing if the instructor is actually using the materials that were presumably developed, the leader's guide, the participant guide, or are they just kind of winging it with the PowerPoint?
He made a strong statement about instructors needing to follow directions.
Yeah, a bit provocative maybe, but his point is consistency in delivery is key if you've designed a specific learning experience. Following the plan is paramount.
Okay. Third observation point.
Learning. Looking beyond the surface. Is it just, glorified PowerPoint with a quiz?
Just click next, fatigue.
Right. Is it truly leveraging what digital can do? Or is it even the right solution? Uses the swimming analogy.
Ah, yes. Knowing versus doing. You can read about swimming, watch videos.
But you got to get in the pool. E-learning is great for knowledge, less so for complex skills requiring hands-on practice. A simulation helps, but it's not the real thing.
Good distinction. And the last observation area.
It's briefly mentioned as use of technology, which really ties back to the LMS discussion, and looking at how tools are actually being implemented and utilized day to day.
Got it. So interviews and observation give you a pretty full picture.
That seems to be the idea. Now, wrapping up this chapter, Rosenbaum kind of sets expectations for the rest of the book. He calls it an idea book.
Not a rigid step-by-step manual.
Exactly. It's drawing on all that experience found in Learning Paths International in 2004, but his work goes way back before that.
You mentioned his early stuff, Plato system simulations.
Yeah, early computer-based training. He talked about typewriters for manuals, laser discs. You really see the whole evolution of the L&D tech landscape through his career.
And his skill seems to be translating complexity into simple terms and understanding process standardization early on.
He's worked across tons of industries, seems to really enjoy working with frontline folks. Less keen on medical training, apparently.
Good to know. He also introduces his learning paths methodology more formally.
Yeah, it sounds like the core framework for the book, based on 3 learning principles and a repeatable design development process. It reflects his shift, too, from pure instructional design,
which he describes as maybe more introverted work,
to consulting, which is much more extroverted, focusing on performance, skill transfer, business results. He even mentions keynoting in China.
Quite a journey. And he shares examples of learning path projects.
Yeah, really vivid ones, like a railroad conductor school using actual tracks and rail cars, very hands-on.
That sounds effective.
Or an insulation company turning sand into fiberglass. He uses these stories to illustrate the core points about improving effectiveness, lowering costs, building better training orgs.
Cool. So that really sets the stage well.
It does. It lays out the problems, the mindset, and the general approach he's going to take.
Okay, so let's try to summarize this initial deep dive. We've explored Chapter 1 of Rosenbaum's How to Improve Any Learning Organization. Our goal was really to give you that foundational understanding, pull out those key starting points.
And I think a major takeaway is this push for a structured, um, a principle-driven approach. It's not just about doing training activities, it's about why and how based on core beliefs about learning.
Right. Starting with those beliefs, then examining processes, maybe starting small at the project level, and that theme of clear communication, shared language.
And involvement.
Yeah,
Getting the right people engaged from the start. Those seem like critical threads right from the beginning.
absolutely. So for everyone listening, maybe think about those 7 quick assessment questions. How would you answer them for your own organization? That could be a really practical first step.
Definitely. And maybe building on that, here's a thought to chew on.
Mm.
Considering Rosenbaum's direct observation points deliverables, classroom training, you're learning which of those, if you look closely in your own context, might reveal the most immediate opportunities for improvement.
Good question. Where's the low-hanging fruit, perhaps?
Exactly. And maybe even more specific,
Mm.
what's one small change, just one, that you could potentially make in that area that might start to shift the picture?
Hmm.
Based on these initial ideas, something concrete to think about applying.